Like, I love listening to you guys because it feels like I'm in a basement with three guys cracking jokes. No.
Fuck off.
My name's Monish, and I'm your main host. Welcome to Real Talk. So this is not a regular episode. This is a behind-the-scenes look at producing this podcast. It's a wild ride. On this intro, I have the one and only my mom. And Mom, when you first heard the podcast, what did you think?
It's really good. I didn't expect to be this good, actually. If you, as a mother, I thought, it's going to be okay, but it is hilarious. Even I liked it. I'm an Indian woman. Even I like it. I took some of the messages from it, like how do you have to hang around with your friends a little bit more and spend time. I really got that message also from the podcast. It's really fun to hear Army and Kevin. I like these three guys. They are like three musketeers.
Would you say this is the greatest podcast on the face of the planet?
I don't know about that. Because I heard few of them, but it is always about political ones, But, podcast, this is a hilarious one. But we all believed, to reach people, it should be funny. That's what we thought. I think it's working. It's worked to me because I listened some of the episode few times. I never thought I'm going to do that. As an adult, I don't think so. I'll be interested to listen to a few times, But I listened beyond it's my son. There's a lot of small things in hit you. That's the fun part about this podcast is it's not like a small messages, small events in your life. Not a big things, small things, but life is made of small things. That's what at the end of the day matters more is the small things. Just like feeding Monish. It's a small thing.
Very deep, Mom. What was it like hearing your son curse on the podcast?
Oh my! I really don't like to hear that. Actually, it was really for me. It took a few days to go and then listen to his podcast because I had never heard my son curse in front of me. I have ever done it. He has ever, but I have to block my mind whenever he does that online. And then to listen, I need to, train my mind to block that words and then go for the message.
Wanted to say, obviously you've been my life support for 20 years now, 21 years. And it's thanks for everything. Thanks for the copious amounts of cooking and food. I'm really glad you like the podcast. Would you like to say welcome to Behind the Scenes?
Welcome to Behind the Scenes. And I need to tell again. Welcome.
Welcome to Behind the Scenes.
Welcome to Behind the Scenes. Have a great podcast.
Season 1 is wrapping up, and
yeah.
How do you guys feel about that?
I hated it. It was so
it's the worst season of all time. Yeah, dude. Probably the hardest part about season 1 was how hard it is to get Army because he is so busy with life. But the good news is that he just quit his job.
Is it Did you tell your family yet and everything? Like, I don't want them to find out through this.
I don't tell my family anything, so no, that's fine. Or honestly, it's not that I didn't like. My favorite part of the job was my coworkers. It wasn't well suited for me, and I had a few other opportunities open up that are a lot better suited to my skill set. And so
you were also the worst bar back at the Dorian.
I probably was one. I was the worst bar back at the Dorian. That's absolutely true. So no denying that.
That's awesome. Army, so curious. when I first brought you onto the project, why did you accept?
Honestly, it's because I thought I would get to sleep with you eventually, but that didn't.
This is all a cruel ploy to get me in bed with Army.
Yeah, and then I remembered you live in like Illinois. And I was like, damn it, why didn't I think of that?
Shit, I actually have to work for this? All right, I don't know.
Yeah.
4 months
honestly,
later, it's like, damn it, he lives in Illinois. He just comes to me.
Oh, God. Yeah. I don't know, man. Like of all the people I met at the Teal Summit, number one, you were definitely like the main guy who stood out as just being a really genuine, great person. And I'm not saying that just to stroke your ego.
Army, I appreciate it. Oh my God.
You're welcome.
What the Monish, put your dick away. Jesus Christ, podcasting.
I just slapped it on the table. Yeah.
What was that, guys? But yeah, I don't know. Like we had started talking about some like I don't know. We didn't stay in touch very much for like 2 years, and then last year, at the end of last year in the fall, we started talking about just what we were working on, and we shared some ideas, and it sounded like we were interested in something very similar. And then you were the one who really wanted to pursue this and push it forward and start this podcast. And I was like, well, sure, man, like that sounds cool. So I just thought it was a good idea. There really isn't much else out there like it. And I thought it was something that I thought, between you, me, and Kevin, we had an interesting perspective on all of this stuff. While we're old enough that we have at least a little bit of life experience that we can pull on. Very minimal.
We're not like 15-year-olds who have no idea what they're talking about.
Like, we at least have enough perspective now to know what we don't know. But yet we're also young enough that we're still close to subject material, so we can still remember it. If you ask and it's still relevant for people who are alive now. Like if you ask a 50-year-old guy like what his high school experience was like, you probably won't get a whole lot of useful answers. Like no offense to people over 50.
My day.
Yeah.
We didn't have a school. We had the factory. Like, okay.
We just went to the farm every morning.
You realize we're talking about like the 70s and 80s, right? This is the 20s.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm curious because you guys were, Army, you were a part of this podcast before I was. As far as, that's my understanding. So I'm curious, how was the process of acquiring me, and how was I like plugged to you, basically?
So we were like, we need someone really stupid on the podcast to make us look amazing, and
we made a list of 200 people, and then when we crossed off 199 of those, there was one left.
You contacted every single one of them, and they were like, "Oh, my time's way too important for a piece of shit podcast."
The list was called "Stupidest People on the Planet," and we had Kevin Sanjay as number one. The reason was because initially when me and Army were talking about the podcast, it was going to be very serious and academic, right? We quickly realized that we weren't serious people, and that when tonally, it wouldn't make sense for the podcast. And also, 3 people is really fun, right? So initially when I was thinking about adding someone fun, I was trying to add someone who was obviously extremely handsome. That was the number one consideration. And
you really fucked up there, man.
Yeah, we didn't get that one going. But the consideration was someone who is intuitive in the moment. We wanted someone who could learn quickly, right? And we also want someone who was close to subject matter, and someone who was funny, someone who could, who was fun to talk to and would vibe well with the group. It's funny, when I first met you, Kevin. Kevin,
keep going. I'm about to climax.
Yeah, Kevin. When I first met you, I was like, this guy seems like someone I really want to be friends with.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
No, dude, for me, like, I didn't know you at all before Monish mentioned you. He's just like, yeah, we're going to get Kevin on here. He's really cool.
It was
I was
so
like,
random. I literally called up Army, and I'm like, dude, this guy named Kevin is coming on, and Army's like, okay.
I was like, I fucking hate the name Kevin.
I hope he's an Asian, damn it.
Yeah, as long as he's not Asian. Damn it.
The Skype call starts. God damn it, Monish.
Like, what was that? Nothing. But yeah, like, honestly, dude, Kevin, I know you like basically make a living out of like self-deprecating jokes, but dude, like, even the first time I met you, it was really obvious Hey, you're really like very funny. You have me cracking up constantly, not just because you're Asian.
I mean, that was probably a big reason.
That was
but-
90%. That was
Okay.
90%, but the other 10% I can say is wits and smarts. So
Yeah, genuine talent. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you guys
Yeah.
like my presence here.
No, and you're a good storyteller, so yeah, it works.
yeah, no, Kevin, when I brought you on, what did you think?
Okay, well, to be honest, first of all, I was not Monish. I mean, clearly, I didn't know you as well as I do now before we started this whole thing. So I guess I wasn't really aware of how good at this shit you actually were. Like when you said, "Oh, I'm starting a podcast," I pretty much thought the same thing as my friends who have come up to me a million times and told me that they wanted to start a YouTube channel. I thought like, all right, well, we're gonna. We don't really have much experience. We're kind of basically just amateurs. But really quickly, you impressed me with like the website design and just the professionalism and the actual work and research you were doing that got putting into the podcast. So I was very impressed pretty rapidly there because originally I had a pretty low investment, and I think you could tell that too. I prioritized the podcast pretty low behind school and work and socializing and everything else. And I think pretty rapidly as we launched and I realized how cool of a thing it was we were doing, my investment increased and I was more committed to making sure that we were doing our best job and showing up on time to podcasting.
Yeah.
I'm like very proud of what we've created here.
That's awesome.
Very cool experience. Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, dude. One of the coolest things about launching this podcast has been the public reception we've gotten to this podcast. And I was extremely nervous about mom, dad, relatives, all of India.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Hearing this. I remember specifically when my mom first texted me about it, and she loved it. I was not expecting that because I mean, we swear on the podcast. And people have been saying things like, dude, it's the podcast is addicting. People have said that they love the friendship dynamic. It's lighthearted. It's like kind of like podcast crack in a sense. It's very light. The research I do, I mean, you guys have seen the podcast prep sometimes. They're disgusting, dude. They're absolutely disgusting.
To anyone, I really want to say to anyone who's listening, I don't think it's really possible to understand the amount of work and research that Monish is putting into this. I mean, I just show up and I respond to Monish's texts. That's basically my job with some editing on the side every once in a while. But Monish is just the powerhouse of this whole operation, and I know he's put a ton of effort into it, which is kind of scary, the amount of work. I think you're probably completely out of your mind, psychotic. But
give me a minute. I'm gonna take off my pants real quick and just, yeah. It's absolutely absurd. Sometimes my girlfriend Justine, she'll be like, Monish, you can stop working on that now.
Monish, do you want to talk and like hang on? No.
I haven't talked to Monish in 7
I gotta
days.
research about intelligence and finances.
I need to research social intelligence.
Yeah, no, getting people from high school that I haven't talked to in years that have reached out to me and been like, oh my God, it's so good. It has been absurd.
Yeah,
it's been probably the coolest thing is when people from your past who you don't really talk to anymore and they come back. That's amazing to me.
Yeah, dude, I got a good friend of mine from like middle school, early high school that I haven't talked to in years, like reached out and he said like, hey, the podcast is great. He thanked me for creating the podcast. I guess the things we talk about must have resonated with them. I mean, I know similar, he grew up in a similar environment to me. We're both like nerdy gamer types. And I don't know, it feels cool that people are connecting with the shit that we're talking about. And yeah, a lot of my friends have said the same things, Monish, about feeling like they're in a room having a conversation with us. And that's the cool part, is knowing that it's like these people can listen to us and feel like they're in a very comfortable, friendly environment discussing these things, which is awesome.
Also, please tell the story of how your friends are cooler than all of my friends combined.
Oh yeah, dude, they're the best. So down on campus, I've got some really cool friends who randomly one day, I'm pretty sure I just woke up from a nap and like they're in my apartment, and one of my buddies hands me a shirt with the Real Talk logo on it. His name's Ryan. I guess, so my friends Ryan, Mark, Austin, and John, there's a little shout out. I know Mark listens to every podcast. I'm not sure about everybody else, but they like went in and bought a t-shirt for me with our logo on it. So that was like the coolest thing ever. I can't really say that I've had any friends that have done such an awesome supportive thing for me in the past. So that was
Yeah, and the crazy part was, so because the logo is copyright protected, they actually couldn't make the t-shirt design online. So they had to sneakily ask me, like, "Hey Monish, I'm making a t-shirt for Kevin. Can you give me copyright permission?" I had to send Ryan an email giving him explicit permission to make a t-shirt. I was like, "Hey dude, you can make a t-shirt. All right, see ya." and they were able to make it. And I was when he texted me about it, and I was like, first of all, that's incredibly sweet. And second of all, where the fuck are my friends? Okay, where? Like, right?
Yeah, your friends blow.
Yeah, yeah. And Justin, my best friend, when I come over for the summer, it's really cool to see him all the time, because it's like every time we talk, it's like even if we haven't talked in a while, it's like we're catching up again, and it's still the same, right?
You guys bang?
Yeah, we bang.
Cool.
But his comment, he said this to me, like, I expected him to he's obviously biased toward me, and he's just going to like whatever I put out. But he said this, and I could tell it was genuine. He was like, I love listening to you guys because it feels like I'm in a basement with three guys cracking jokes. No. That's not where I was taking that. No, but he was like, I feel like I'm in a basement with three guys just sipping on some brews, talking about stuff, and it feels it's really fun to listen to. So
yeah, dude, I've had a lot of friends say similar things.
Yeah, look, count on Army to have the worst interpretation of anything we say ever on the podcast.
Yeah, dude. Also, Monish, iTunes reviews. We've had a bunch of great reviews.
I just want to say, like, I ran a podcast for like 3 years and it got 47 reviews. Now, granted, I never really pushed that hard for it. You guys are at like 44, 43 after like
45, baby,
like,
45.
Damn, closing in. Like, what
Monish
has it been?
he has a live update chart at all times running on his phone. So.
Like, what has it been? Like a month and a half, maybe 2.5 months. But we launched like mid-March, something like that.
Dude, we got so many reviews flooding in within like the first 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah,
I remember the first.
Crazy.
I remember when we got like one day we had 3 reviews, and then I woke up and then we had 18, and I was like, oh my god.
Yeah,
this is
like
nuts.
the number of.
I've never had a boner this big before.
But yeah, the number of positive reviews to like the total number of subscribers or downloads is way better than anything I've seen.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's been incredible. So Laura Coe, who's actually on our podcast, it was number 8, where we grill Kevin on his entire life. Basically, it was just one random morning. I woke up. I was at Justine's place, and she texts me, and she goes, "I was looking for my podcast, but I found yours instead." And then she screen caps every single category of iTunes that we're in, and us on the front page. And then I proceeded to shit my pants, go home, buy some new Levi's, and then shit my pants again, because I was just... I remember that moment of realizing that we made the front page of iTunes for every category we're in for new and noteworthy, and just being blown away.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you Snapchatted me a picture of your erection, and the caption was just "front page, baby." I was pretty confused. But I figured it out.
That's
after
exactly what happened. I remember frantically texting Kevin, like, "Oh my god!" Just like
I got a Hollister shirt.
we were texting each other like schoolgirls.
Oh my god, we have the same color binder.
Yeah, no. When we hit the front page, also the numbers cranked up like a motherfucker. Which, because before then I was like, oh, we have friends and family, and then I'm like, oh my god,
we have real people.
Real people. Yeah, so my friends and family aren't real people. Yeah, like, everyone else.
We have friends and family, but we don't have thousands of friends and family.
Yeah. One of the huge things about creating this podcast for me, for Kevin, less so for Army because Army has done his own thing before, is that especially for me and Kevin, this is our first thing. This is our first baby that's ours, you know? We've essentially
this is our first baby together.
Yeah, no, I mean, me and Kevin have had aggressive, passionate sex for months, and finally, finally, 50 Skype sessions later, we've conceived of this this baby, and it's something I'm really proud of, and it's something that makes everything else seem like it's in black and white. And when I'm stepping into the realm of this podcast, it's like going from black and white and stepping into color.
Oh, that was so beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Guys, I actually have to get going. I promised my friends I'd be ready in about 7 minutes, so I got to brush my teeth again and do some other shit.
That's fine.
You're a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right. I'll see you guys later.
All right. See you, you fucking cats.
What do you want to do? Continue on or just...
I'm thinking continue on only because, like, we already just said all that shit again, and it was, like, coming from a place of, you know, like real emotion, and recreating it will feel really weird, you know?
Okay, for sure.
Yeah, so let's just continue.
Cool. Just cut out Army for everything.
Piece of shit.
Yeah. Dude, yeah, no, it's there's been so many weird little things. I mean, it's been like it's taken multiple takes essentially to get the podcast right. Remember when we had 7 podcasts before we recorded our first real podcast. Right? Because we were just rambling, we were just talking. There was no coherent points. We had no idea what we were conceiving. We were essentially conceiving of just terrible podcasts.
Yeah.
And there was so much work and behind the scenes stuff that went on to do it.
It's been quite a process. I mean, I don't think anybody other than our really close friends that we've talked to the podcast endlessly about know that, you know, the months leading up to our launch date were probably the hardest part.
Yeah, because
just the constant recording and then scrapping that recording and then recording again, figuring out the conversational flow between us three. I think it comes off when we release this thing as very coherent and
it seems
nicely
easy.
bound.
It seems easy.
Yeah. It seems like they probably just get on the podcast and start talking, which is really not what it is at all.
Yeah.
It's quite a process, especially on your end. I mean, the amount of research that each episode takes, and then not only doing the research, but structuring it in a format that is, I guess, conducive to the podcast itself, to the format of our conversation. So it's quite a process. It's a lot of work to create an audio file of us talking for 25 minutes and have it sound good and have good material.
You wouldn't think is a lot of work at all, actually, because it seems like you can just record a Snapchat of yourself talking and that's all you got to do just for 45 minutes. It's actually a lot harder to do, and part of this can sound like bitching about it. It's, you know, we're extremely lucky to be in college, to be in a position where we can spend a lot of time doing something like this and doing a creative project, right? Whereas, you know, there's other people who are like 30 and need to put their dick on the line because they got to pay the bills. They got to feed the kids. They got jobs. You know,
they got a 2-time wife and a kid who has to put the fucking. Yeah, I'm trying to get my bachelor's to take night classes every night. I'm
going to ITT Technical Institute. You know what I'm saying? You know, trying to get that.
Yeah, he's trying to get me an education. Oh, fucking.
Yeah, no, and we're really lucky to be college kids in a fake world where we can do this, and we can do something that's our own. We can do something that has the potential to be full-time jobs essentially, and it has the potential to, or not even part-time jobs. Even at that, it's still extremely lucky. We're lucky to have recording equipment to be able to do this, and just. I don't know. A lot of this podcast has made me feel very grateful for the things that have gone right, and very grateful that we can say basically whatever the fuck we want to say, and people appreciate that.
I mean, 5 years ago, there's no way. 5-6 years ago, high school, I just never thought that I'd be able to have a platform like this where we're putting such an open and vulnerable dialogue out to the public eye. And it's kind of it's a very surreal and interesting process of putting the shit out there and then having the shit that we're talking about available to potentially thousands of people. I don't know. It just feels incredibly surreal that we're doing this right now.
And then hearing your voice and just hating it, and then being like, "Yeah, I'm gonna put it."
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Never satisfied. I mean, there are times when I'm satisfied with my voice, but initially, just because I've gotten used to it so many times. But two things that are extremely awkward. The first few weeks of just doing the podcast and hearing myself, I'm like, "Oh God," and maybe listening to the podcast with a friend in the same room. Worst thing in the world. It's just because you become very cognizant of your performance.
My God.
Yeah.
In our first recordings, when I was editing them and listening back to my voice, it was like getting stabbed in the ears the entire time. Oh my God, it was brutal. Like, wow, I'm gonna put this shit on iTunes and have every single person ever be able to download it and listen to my shitty voice all the time. That is unreal.
When I first heard my voice, I was like, who is this brown, lanky loser on this podcast, and why did they let him in the first place? Who gave this man a mic?
Exactly.
And also, it was crazy because I took a chance on you, dude. I didn't really know what you... Like, I knew you were a fun person to hang out with and a fun person to talk to, but I didn't know if you were good to work with, right? I mean, like... My friend Justin, right? He's really good at baseball. He was on the baseball team in high school, right? Like, I'm a great friend of his. But if I was like, yo, Justin, can you recommend me to get on the baseball team? He would be like, yo, show me if you can play baseball first. Like, it doesn't really matter if he's my friend, my best friend, whatever. And one of the things that's been amazing to see is that you were extremely professional in how you went about this podcast. Initially, I mean, there was a very low investment. I could sense it sort of far away.
Right.
But seeing you grow and just due diligence to the job at hand has been extremely exciting for me, and has been exciting because while we disagree, the ways in which we come up with solutions, I think those disagreements actually spurn better solutions, which is fantastic.
I agree.
All the time. And there's never been a time when we disagree about something or whatever, and it seems like it's out of spite for the other person. It's always just we're trying to do something better. And also we handle it like fucking adults. I'm gonna give us that, right? Like you'll be like, hey Monish, I don't think this is the way to go, and I'll be like, I see your point. I think X, Y, and Z, and then we'll talk it out, and then we'll come up with something better, and it's amazing every time.
What I really enjoy between first of all, very cool of you to say all that shit. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
What I like a lot in the way that we handle the disagreements regarding the podcast is how we're both able to convince each other of our points depending on the situation. Like I could go into something thinking one thing about whatever issue it is, and then you'll explain it to me, give me your perspective, and I can actually change my mind. And I've seen you do the same exact thing. So it creates an environment that the creative process is much smoother because of that dynamic, I think.
I think one of the biggest social problems, just generally speaking, is the fact that people are not willing to change their minds in real time about things. When evidence is available, right? And here's the thing, dude. Like, Kevin, you bring up something to me. You bring up a perspective that challenges my own perspective. There's a real cost that perspective had. Like, you got to bring the goods of a convincing argument to make me change my perspective. Like, changing my perspective isn't some loosey-goosey type deal where you can just say whatever the fuck you want and I'll change my mind, right? You need to come up with the goods. And I think what's so great is that we do come up with the goods, and we do try to see things from each other's perspective. And it's been one of the great things about this podcast is changing our minds about things and being proven wrong and finding new things. Like, I get excited when someone changes my mind about something, because it's almost like kind of like crack a little bit. Like, oh, I just learned something new, right? Ego-wise, ego-wise, in the moment with the person in the room, it can be like, fuck that. But from an intellectual perspective, there is something great about knowing something or feeling out a different perspective that you didn't have before.
Yeah, it's super cool, and it's been an awesome process, and I don't think there's many people that I've worked with in the past that we've been able to do that. I like talking things out, and I like being able to compromise and think about things differently. And I think that's a cool thing that we have is we can do that. And I think it's reflected well on the podcast because every single time we get into one of those discussions or disagreements, one of us is learning from it and we get to improve as a whole with the podcast. And it's been a really, really cool experience, dude.
Yeah, man. And
except for Army, he fucking blows. God.
Yeah.
I mean, the lack of professionalism in that piece of shit is unreal.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah. That will just be the Army Sucks episode. No. One of the great surprises of this podcast has been just how supportive everyone has been, especially in my family. My sister, Vishali, has been absurdly useful and absurdly helpful for this podcast. In fact, a lot of the points I make is Vishali speaking through me, right? My sister's speaking, and I'm just kind of talking from her points because like we'll do these podcast preps and they'll have in-depth, research and insights, and she'll always be like, Monish, this is great, but here's why this podcast prep is a piece of shit, and then she'll basically just tell me all these wonderful, smart points, and I'll just bask in her brilliance and use that and then take it as my own, which has been amazing for the thought process and just talking out things with her, whether it comes to design, whether it comes to what the name of things should be, whether it comes to creative decisions. She's been phenomenal, and she's brilliant. She's wonderful. She's sweet, and she's in every single special credits, and well deserved. So she's a part of this podcast. You just can't hear her voice.
She has been a fantastic resource. Just the insights that you've told me coming from her that she's providing to you have been nothing short of brilliant, I would say. Yeah, I'm really glad that you have your family backing you, not only with your sister, but your parents listen to the podcast. Your mom listens to it.
Dad listens to it. He's listened to every single episode. I sneaked on his phone.
They're all psychotic. They listen to each episode 23 times. Yeah, dude. My family. It's been an interesting response for sure. My family background is this pretty just conservative white Christian family, and I knew there was going to be some concerns about, I guess, the way we discuss things. I mean, we swear all the time. I mean, it's no secret, but I never swear.
It says parental advisory on the goddamn iTunes,
which makes me feel so sick. By the way,
probably the only reason I did this podcast was to feel like Biggie or Tupac and just release this. On the world.
Exactly. I put a disclaimer in my initial Facebook post saying friends and family, I say fuck all the time in this podcast. If that's going to offend you, don't listen to it. But a lot of them have listened to it, and it's been very supportive. I actually just got breakfast with my aunt, some of my aunts and uncles and grandparents I haven't seen in a while. And, my aunt was telling me, I listened to the podcast. Very cool. And she was super supportive about it. My dad listens to every single episode instantly when they're released, and he calls me on the phone after he listens to them usually, or a day after, and we kind of do a review of the episode, and he just tells me his perspective on what we were talking about or comments on the little things he likes about it. I like one time my dad was telling me that when he downloads these episodes and he listens to them, he gets this thought in his head every time I talk that, oh, that's my son. Very proud of me. That's awesome. That was a super, super cool thing to hear from him. Don't think my mom has listened to any yet. If you have, hey mom, how's it going?
Yeah. One of also the coolest things has been my girlfriend listening to each episode. So she listens to each episode before they release, and then she gives me audio feedback as well as my sister. And my girlfriend has been incredibly instructive and incredibly supportive of this entire process, and she has she listens to podcasts now. I think I got her into podcasts, and which is amazing, but her feedback, her help, her willingness for me to be literally it will be I'll be releasing the next day, and I'll be like, Justine, I need you to do it right now, and then she'll sit down and listen to the podcast. It's wonderful. I mean, she's
that's awesome, man.
She's a lovely human being, and dude, to wrap this up, I just kind of want to acknowledge, even though he's not here in the room, Army. Army has been wonderful. I knew he.
Yeah.
the moment I sort of knew, like the moment that I didn't know that I wanted him on the podcast, but like I really, really liked him, was when we were on a phone call, and this was like one of our first phone calls when we hadn't talked in 2 years, and he goes, "Yeah, dude, Monish. I mean, like he was talking about the podcast, and like, dude, you're really funny. I think you should do that." And I just basked in that compliment for maybe a week, and I was like, okay, this guy likes my sense of humor. He digs my style, and I dig his. This is gonna be amazing. And Army,
You guys should fuck.
yeah, no, we're gonna have passionate sex soon. But Army has been wonderful in the sense that he's extremely busy with real jobs, paying real bills, and he has made the time, even if the timing is extremely a bitch to make, he has made the time to come on the podcast and just to be insightful and to crack jokes and be fun. And it'll be hilarious because he'll come on the podcast and I'll learn something, right? Even though I've done so much research, and he'll be like, "Have you thought about it from this perspective?" And I'll be like, "That's amazing." And it's he comes up with incredibly fruitful ideas that I think add huge value.
I agree, dude. Something that I feel like a lot of people may not realize is I've never met Army in person. I've never seen him in real life. He might be an android for all I know. All I have is that you've met him before.
Yeah.
Okay.
And dude, I met him when he was a completely different human being. I will send you a photo of him. Not even the same person, right?
Yeah, that's really funny.
Yeah.
But I've never met Army, and I think the first day we got on, we started recording. It was like one of our first episodes that we ended up scrapping. When I really was introduced to Army. I mean, I was incredible. First of all, I was incredibly impressed by his knowledge of the material and just the additional insights he was providing to the conversation. But I was also impressed by just his general conversational manner and sense of humor. I mean, him and I meshed very well, and I think we very quickly. I mean, I can pretty confidently call him a friend, even though we've only really interacted through this kind of this business-like operation.
These ghetto Skype calls that we do in our basement in rooms where we have multiple mic problems. Yeah, and we call the studio for. God damn it! That's so inaccurate. It's not a fucking studio.
It's bullshit. But Army's awesome, and it's been super awesome getting to know him, and just also seeing what he's accomplished in his 21 years compared to you and I, who are fucking living our fake lives in college, is almost inspirational. I mean, it's crazy the things he's done. The kid fucking dropped out of high school. You don't come across people as interesting as Army is often at all in life, I think.
Yeah. Dude, and yeah, just to top it off, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast, man. I mean, number one, you're one of my best friends, and doing something with people who I consider really good friends, and just working with that's so gratifying, because I've noticed, especially as people get older, they don't hang around and work with their friends. They get jobs, which is fine, but they do things. And I remember Charlie was telling this podcast, the story on a podcast, and he was just in a tour. He was on some movie tour, and he was the videographer for it. And he was sitting down, and Tucker Max is part of this, but Tucker came up to Charlie, and Tucker was like, "What's wrong? You seem down." And Charlie was like, "All this work is amazing, but I feel like I've left all my friends to pursue it," right? And one of the most gratifying things about this podcast has been not only having a more than competent worker on the team, right, which is you, Kevin, but having someone I consider a best friend, someone who I can literally tell anything to, right? And that's not something you see in these realms a lot, because finding both talent and finding a friend at the same time, it's a Venn diagram, and finding someone who has that overlap has been nothing short of amazing. And It's been fantastic. So
yeah, dude, that's really cool of you to say. I agree completely. It's rare that I find someone that I connect with so well, and also am like-minded enough to sort of pursue the same general types of thing, and work on the same type of shit and do the same types of things with my life. And I really wasn't expecting this whole thing to come out of nowhere, and for us to get as close as we have through the podcast. So it's been a super awesome experience, and I'm very glad you asked me to be on it, and I appreciate that you asked me to be on it because it's been super cool. I don't really like the whole tall, lanky Indian thing, but
yeah,
I respect your work that you've put into this, dude. It's been crazy the amount that I've seen you just give 100% at all times towards this podcast, and the passion that you have for it. Even though I give you shit and complain about it from time to time.
Yeah.
It's been nuts, dude. Super, super cool.
Yeah.
Very happy with everything right now.